getting into the book, and I've read the book, and for me, it was such an incredible, eye-opening experience. It poked something in me that I didn't know was there. So it told me that it reminded me of the type of leader that I aspire to become, that I see myself becoming. So, as for other readers, what is it that they will get from reading this book?
Well, I think, so we're all leaders,
Mm.
and so it is a growth igniter,
Ah.
so it is an inspiration snack. It is an opportunity to really feel what that could mean, because heart-based leadership might be a new concept for a lot of people, so you
Mm.
might be sitting here today when you grab the book, not really connecting to what that means. And I also didn't know
Yeah.
that when I initially started my work, and my specialty is depth work. But it's really taken me 15 years to land properly in my heart. So I kind of call the last 15 years like a tryout
Mm.
for the big league of heart-based leadership. And that's really stepping into a we space where we get a collective lens. But in order to really understand some of the models that I'm
Mm.
sharing in the book, it requires that we get into our heart. So the book invites the reader into a journey of really understanding themselves. And so the book meets the reader where they're at, So I'm not expecting that, okay, let's all flip the switch, step into heart-based leadership. I mean, it took me the last 15 years where I kind of consciously enrolled myself for the journey. So we also got to be kind to ourselves and really take the journey. So the first 7 chapters is really a journey of the human quest, being met in our own forgetfulness.
Mm.
And with that, I mean, I start the book with quite a very brutal conversation, a very honest conversation about that we're not doing too well as a human species. We're often harming ourselves and each other. Mostly we are. And so this is an invitation to put heart back in our leadership and also how we lead our own lives. So the book leads us to the first 7 lessons, really to own the puzzle piece we are in the collective, and begin to take much better care of ourselves, because heart, at the center of heart-based leadership, it is well-being that will ignite people and performance. But mostly we are not well, and we might not fully be honest about that, but the book invites us into that conversation to take a much closer look. And also, when you look at the analogy of the prisons, that what I really learned from all the prison work was to start to shift stuck places. And also realizing, because I really, by sitting in all these prison sessions, I really had to be honest with myself about where am I stuck.
Mm.
The first time in my life, I really faced some of the brutal facts in my life that I
Sure.
had not been honest enough about. So, when you ask, so what are we getting out of, what can the reader take out? Well, first of all, a really honest conversation with yourself about where are you? And if you are willing to undertake that journey in a growth igniter kind of way, because I mean, I have another book in writing, The Art of Being Human, which is for deep spaces, but this book is an igniter. So it just stays, here, just to ignite and invite into the space of having this conversation, so that we, in the last 3 chapters, where we move into our impact lens, we begin to see, so do I harm or do I build? Do I harm or do I build? Which is a really honest conversation to have. And we begin to, yeah, practice what it means to be a positive role model, like I did the last 15 years, my tryouts for the big league, practicing what it means to be a positive role model in terms of, and it starts at home in my family, be a better
Mm.
mom,
Mm.
that I became a better, like in leading my team, and also, I mean, my entire team are all ex-offenders, so it's quite a powerful the way we built Smiling One over the years, and the teachings we have. I mean, everything I teach and publish is all deeply lived. It's a deeply lived experience. So as you, as the reader, are invited into this experience, it's not something we can do in the mind.
Mm.
It's done leading from the mind. I mean, and that's why I call it a prison break, because we're trying to break out of the mental constructs that we have created for ourselves for such a long time, so that we can begin to look at what does it mean to have a collaborative space, an inclusive space. And then, as you called out, my favorite, well, I mean, what, definitely my favorite teaching when it comes to what has awoken me, because when I came to South Africa in 2006, Paul,
Yeah.
I felt this very special energy. I immigrated from Europe, from
Yeah.
Denmark, where I grew up. And I came and there was something very different going on here. There was like a heartbeat that kind of like, and I just felt, I didn't know what it was. And it was,
Yeah.
and as you read in the book, I had quite an interesting landing in South Africa, like quite a different than expected. And life is often like that, right? It throws you one
Yes,
curveball after the other. As I say in the book, being human is not a
absolutely.
disease.
Life
So
is a classroom, like you always say.
it is a classroom. So it's that heartbeat that I felt was the heartbeat of Africa, the heartbeat of Ubuntu. I am because you are. So that, as part of the big league analogy and philosophy, that I am because you are, that means if you're
Right.
well, I'm well. If I'm well, you're well. That is at the center. That is the key to heart-based leadership, to really begin to step into that, because we cannot actually speak about progress unless we ask ourselves that question. So, how well are we? And also, when we then lead a business, that we have that lens and have that in the heart space of leading people, because actually it's people who drive your business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
True. True.
there are a lot of things to harvest in the book. There's lots, but the first one is a really honest, like, whoa, let's look at what this means to me. So also the book is created like a little journey that you can journal a little bit in the book. There are some practices in the book to kind of just ignite these first conversations for you
Mm.
to have with yourself, and to think about, who are you as a leader?
Yeah.
How do you show up on your
And I
own?
think,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think from what I've discovered with this journey and reading the book, it's all about readiness. Like, are you
Mm.
ready to be brutally honest with yourself? Are you ready to actually start that journey to becoming a better person? It's all about being ready.
Yeah, no, and well, it's a nice, yeah, I like how you put it, in Pooh. It is about readiness, and it is about the question, when we look at our best version, and that might be, oh, we all speak about, let's all fine tune our best version strategy, but I mean, it's really important. And of course, when we then look at this, and you get front row seats to some of the stories, some of the journeys inside prison, some of our wonderful team members, and it's amazing when we get that front row seat and we say, well, what does it mean to engage change? Okay, so when we begin to think about ourselves and our journey, to see how these men that I journeyed with inside prison, they're them crossing this threshold to
Mm.
the battle between the old and the new. And I mean, I'm also sharing my own battle in the book of between the old and the new. The dance we have with the parts of us that we have created, the constructs we are subscribing to. And our patterns are very persistent. That's also why we gotta carry ourselves quite gently through this journey. So in the book, you find a mix of different stories of really engaging the question, am I ready? And what does
Yeah.
that readiness really look like? Because it can feel like a tremendous risk to let go of what we had. And of
Mm.
course, when I sit in sessions with, and it doesn't really matter if it's in a prison inside our correctional centers, or if it's in sessions with executives, teams, in sessions with you as a wonderful, beautiful, emerging leader in your capacity, in your role, it's really all about taking the risk and starting to, yeah, having the courage to craft your new role of leadership, heart-based leadership, and to begin to, through this journey, to feel into what that means, you know, because actually, and I think that's what the pandemic has gifted us with. I think most of us have gotten much closer to that the old way is not the great way. We are
Definitely not.
remarkable at painting pretty pictures.
Yeah.
And I've done that for a very long time because that was kind of Karina's, you know, like survival strategy, even if I didn't call it like that. But that's how I kind of got along and how I showed up in my leadership. But you know what? It actually doesn't work and it actually doesn't serve. And when I allowed myself to step into a different way of leading, and that I've learned in the prison space,
Mm.
something
Yeah.
very different happened in my own team, the way I am with my team, the and I speak about, you know, creating sacred meeting places where you're actually really meeting one another, and that from that place to create a space and a team where there's wow, there's I can be here, there's room for me. I can kind of come
Amazing.
into myself, into what I speak about, another way of being. And so
Yeah.
I'm calling the leaders also, are you ready to create such a space for another way of being, you know?
Right.